The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by Draft Kings Sportsbook, as it always is. Download the Draft Kings Sportsbook app and use promo code RTRS when you sign up. There's always special deals for that. Also brought to you by Touchstone Electric Fireplaces. Get yours at zerodeadbirds.com. Use promo code TTP for 15% off. Oh, I'm bummed because we're not using Zoom and I can't do the background with the Touchstone fireplace. Fuck.
It looked cool.
Yeah, it did. If you're watching this on YouTube, no.
Imagine.
Yeah, just imagine it. And Adam Kasabi, the official realtor of the process. Use promo code RTRS for 15% off your first house with Adam. Depends on the restrictions apply. On the pod today, Brett Brown talks, gives some good news. None of the Sixers tested positive for COVID-19 this time.
Maybe.
Do
we believe? When's the last time we believed a health
anything?
Report?
Yeah. Only when it's bad.
That's right.
Ben Simmons is totally healthy, he says. And nobody worked out more than Joel Embiid over the last 3.5 months on the Sixers, which is either a great sign or just the worst sign in history. And then we'll also talk about Zhaire Smith. And we have Mike's writing partner, Patrick, one half of Brotherly Love, the LeBron-funded television show that never came to be. But now we all have the script. So it has come to be on the Ricky and in our hearts. We've been getting orders up until we started the pod, so we'll keep it up there for another day. As long as people keep ordering it, we'll keep it up there.
Let's keep it going.
Just keep it
It's
going.
like a music festival.
Yeah, so the $5 you pay, you get the PDF of the script, and the $5 goes to the Coded by Kids CBK Academy and the Providence Animal Center Canine College, and it is matched by Touchstone Fireplaces, the official sponsor of the whole package. So thank you, Touchstone. So just go to RightsToRickySanchez.com. People have already started finding the process Easter eggs and posting them on Twitter. So
that's right. Wouldn't expect anything less. $5 to charity, couple laughs, couple process memories. RightsToRickySanchez.com. Buy the script.
You get to have stuff that doesn't take up any space in your place. You know, like I'm not a big actual stuff guy, but it's just goes in the cloud, whatever the fuck that means. All right, without any further ado,
Come on.
Amos and the chef.
Larry, sweetie, the man is here.
Say the name, I say the name, I say the name.
We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy that does not have a bone bruise in his knee right before even coming back to play basketball. That is Mike Levin.
I do have some odd ailments as I'm playing mini basketball in my living room, where I'm just like, why does my foot feel weird? I think just like being lack of movement and playing actual basketball is... My body is just falling apart. But no Zhaire bone bruise, so I could theoretically go to Orlando.
Well, I could tell you, and I know you don't want to hear this, now that you are on the other side of 30, those little pains that you have, they do pop up more.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
You know?
I would think that they would pop up more when I'm playing, though, rather than when I'm not playing.
You'd be surprised,
you know what I mean?
man. Sometimes you just wake up and you're like, what the fuck is that pain? And you get, like... When you're younger, I guess it might be the same. When you're younger, you're like, it'll go away, and it goes away quicker. When you're older, you really got to tune in to whether it goes away or not, because some of those things stick around.
Right. I'm pretty good at dealing with nagging pain
Yeah.
and doing absolutely nothing about it.
You know,
Which feels like my most like male
yeah.
trait is to like something's wrong. I guess I'll just live with it now. This is just what it's gonna be.
When I was like 20,
I'm gonna see. What am I gonna see? A doctor? Come on.
when I was like 24, I had a headache for 6 months on the left side of my head. True story.
Yeah,
It always
that sounds
it
right.
reminds me of there was this kid I knew. He lost it junior year. He went crazy. This kid Andy Boyle, and he would pick me up in this old BMW. It had to be like a late 70s BMW, real piece of shit. And I asked him what that noise was. I was like, "Hey, what's that noise coming from the back?" He's like, "Oh, I know how to fix it." I'm like, "What?" And he just turned up the radio. And that's kind of what you have to do with your body as you get older.
There it is.
Turn up the radio. So before we get into the good news, Zhaire Smith, bone bruise, will not travel to Orlando. Probably wasn't going to play anyway. But it just, I mean, look, we've had some jinxed players over the years, injury-wise.
We have,
The-
and we're jinxed
Right.
in a lot of ways.
I was going to say that. Like, the whole thing is jinxed. But probably our fault a lot. But I might go so far as to say even Joel, who broke the foot twice, knee thing, face thing, knee thing again, weird sickness, he never almost died. I think I got to say that Zhaire might be the king of the bad luck injury.
So far, it's been tough. I feel for the kid. He wasn't
Yeah.
going to play in Orlando anyhow, so knowing that they didn't like, and Brett said on the call that he doesn't anticipate anybody sitting out Orlando were it to happen. So Zhaire wasn't going away, so may as well keep him safe. It's sort of like the I'm going to butcher this, but who's the guy designated survivor of like if there's the president, the vice president, and the cabinet are somewhere, you need one guy somewhere else. I think Zhaire is that for us. In case Orlando goes really bad, at least we still have Zhaire to stay alive and carry the team on his shoulders.
On his frail shoulders.
Which will go well.
Yeah.
On his frail shoulder. No, he's great. He's going to be good. I still believe. I really, really still believe.
He's not even going
I think he's going to focus.
Isn't next year the last year of his rookie contract at this point, or does he have 2 more
No.
years? 2 more.
2 more years. Yeah. But we look, the whole process started with being like, take a year, redshirt everyone all the time, and now we're just developing that to go further, and it's going to be him, and a nice little double redshirt. Why not?
What happens first? Zhaire Smith plays 60 games in a season, or you recommend just extending him for 4 years and $64 million?
64 is tough. I would extend him right now though. I would absolutely extend him right now. Maybe like a 3 more years, like 12 million. Like build that out. You have him there.
Yeah.
Why not?
The Apple Podcast 5-star review of the week. We're at 2,692. This one comes from Mr. Jeffster. He says, "It's my everything podcast. The pod has been my lifeline to all things Sixers in Delaware Valley. I'm a South Jersey native in voluntary exile in Norway. But since the lockdown started, things have gone next level. This has become my everything pod, reliably serving me updates on current affairs and lifestyle trends and rendering other podcasts basically superfluous." I like that. There we go.
I want to know what involuntary exile in Norway is. What court of law in this country sends
get to
people to Norway and being like, sorry, you're not allowed here anymore. You must go to Norway.
Get to Norway. And speaking of what he said, I mentioned to Mike yesterday, the day before, that June of this year, we had the second most downloads we've ever had in the history of the podcast in any month. So, and there was
Indictment on the way we talk about basketball.
yeah, truly. You could take it one of 2 ways: a compliment on how we talk about other things, or a true indictment on how good we are at talking about basketball.
Yeah.
So-
These guys, there's no basketball to talk about? Yeah, I'll check in and see what these guys are about.
Sure. Yeah. What is that? A musician on there? Is that a musician? Wait. Speaking of which, do you remember when I compared Mountjoy? We had Matt Quinn on for Mountjoy, and I compared him to Blind Melon, and he was like, "Yeah, I've heard of those guys. I guess they're a '90s band." It really bothered me that he hadn't listened. So a documentary just came out on the singer, and I online rented it for Matt and sent it to him so he would watch it, so he didn't think that what I was saying was an insult. And he did watch it. So.
That's so aggressive.
I know.
You rented it on his behalf.
Well, you could gift it. I gifted it to him.
Wow.
$12. All right. So Brett Brown does a Zoom today. like today the first group practice day or something, the first camp day or something. Is that why he was doing it? I think so. The first thing he says, and all these quotes are courtesy of Mr. Kyle Neubeck, who gave me audio of one quote, which I will play. He says about Ben Simmons, "You're going to treat Ben like you treat Shake or Matisse. He's good to go. He's put a tremendous amount of work for me to be able to confidently say that. When you search for silver linings with this pandemic and the way things have shaken out, it would be hard-pressed for me to find something more obvious than this. It has enabled Ben to reclaim his health. We look forward to watching him with what I'm told is effectively 100% health." He couldn't just say it, by the way. With what I'm told is effectively 100% health. So that's good news.
You got to give yourself a trapdoor, just to know there's a little bit of an out if things go bad. You can be like, "Well, I said what I'm told."
We did see those pictures with he and his 6 photographers, including Alex Subers, but he was lifting weights. And if he's doing bench presses and stuff, I would hope that his back is okay. Lifting weights.
Yeah, I mean, well, he played in that game with LeBron. There was a pickup game with LeBron and something, and so he was throwing down dunks and stuff. So I think is that he's certainly good enough to play. Is he good enough to play like NBA speed, NBA minutes, that kind of thing? I think that's remains to be seen. But hopefully he's healthier than he was in the Milwaukee game when they played him after a back injury, and he was in so much pain that he threw up.
From a different back injury, just
from totally separate.
Yeah,
never seen anything like it. Amazing how you hit lightning strikes twice in the same part of your back, but different parts of your back.
Well, you have two backs.
It just happens.
Everyone has two backs.
It's the front back and the back back.
Then on to Joel Embiid, again from Brett Brown via Kyle Neubeck. Let's start with the respect and applause I give him for putting in time. There is nobody on our team that has put in more time than Joel Embiid. Forget what he has actually done in the gym for a minute. Just go to the man hours and consecutive days and the amount of days he has put in over the past few months. Let's just count the number of times this professional athlete worked out in a row. I'm proud of him. I respect him. He needed to do it. We understand the impact he can have on our team. We've got a 3-week runway to deliver him to the regular season. I'm looking for Joel to come in as good a shape as he's been since I've coached him. I think that the 3 weeks we have together is an inverted sort of luxury we haven't had. I'm excited for Joe to get back and show what he's been doing the last few months. Believe it or not believe it.
I love Brett Brown. I love the way Brett Brown talks.
Mm-hmm.
I know that we're enjoying this and we get to savor this until he's replaced by some like boring chud.
Mm-hmm.
So let's appreciate it. I would really like a Brett Brown who doesn't give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just like smoking a cigar, being like, whatever, healthy, not healthy. I'll fucking play. Who's there? I don't know. You guys have been here. I don't know. Like he still puts so much energy into it,
mm-hmm.
and spins it in a way that makes us feel good. But we've been down this road so many times. I almost want him to be. And he would never trash his players, obviously.
Yeah.
But I almost want him to be a little bit more self-aware of the predicament that he was when he was on stage with us at whatever that was.
Yeah, I was going to say that. When he realized how ridiculous all of this was, Exactly.
And I think to the regular media, he maybe has to play
along.
I love it. I love him. Like, always stand up for your players. Always, he shows up for work. Like, he's a guy who does not phone it in. I would like a little bit of just, have a couple beers, sit back and be like, all right, you want to really hear what's going on? Like, I want a little bit of that before it's all over.
Well, I can't do his accent, but I would love in his main Australian accent to just go with the cigar. I don't fucking know.
Something like that.
And to your point about the way he talks about it to make us feel good, the problem is he's lied while he was doing that so many times that when he's talking the way he's talking, I just assume that he's lying. And then the final thing is,
and I don't blame. I agree with that, but let's also blame the organization.
I don't blame him.
Forcing him to be the one to absorb the brunt of all of any Sixers misfortune over the last 7 years where Brett has had to come out and defend
Yeah.
and spin and be the guy that takes it head on.
Sometimes it's good to lie. Sometimes you got to lie.
Love lying.
And and then finally, when you talk about him on stage, the look that I will remember from Brett Brown is when I asked him, "Hey, Greg Monroe started a playoff game for you guys last year," and he just he was about to launch into the Brett Brown bullshit,
Yep,
and he
I
just
remember.
goes, "Yeah, this is the life we've lived," and I was like, that was the real one.
Yeah.
So then Kyle Neubeck, again, and he tweeted this, and I'm going to play the clip. Brett Brown is looking through the people on the Zoom call, and this is what was said.
So I'll try to answer the questions in order. And Howard, I would be lying at my screen, and I'm seeing, what do I got? I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 across, and I got 2, 4. I guess I'm looking at 25 initially, and the whole time I'm looking at this person, I'm wondering, who the hell is that? So you look like you've come from the Maine woods, and here I am. Since the pandemic started, I'm walking 14 miles a day. I have not trimmed my beard and have not gotten a haircut. So you are Forrest Gump. I'm going to call you Forrest.
So there you go.
It's very, as we saw with your dad when we had him on for Father's Day, it was like, it's Brett Brown press conference, and let's do a little detour for the Howard Eskin show.
He called him Forrest. That's what he's gonna call him. I don't think my dad's ever gonna shave or get a haircut again. So, and 69 years old, that risk. I don't know if I need him to be that close to anybody. And then finally, a couple of quotes. One about backup point guard, and then one about Al Horford. Brett Brown was asked who is going to take the backup point guard minutes when Simmons has to sit. Shake has put his hand up in a pretty definitive way initially, but and then he says, but he'll see how everyone comes into camp. Excited to lean into Ben's versatility and seems bullish on Shake's general role. He also had another quote about more Ben off ball, yada yada yada. That same old shit.
It's been interesting since we haven't had basketball in pretty close to 4 months. I've gotten less optimistic.
Yeah, I've heard it happen.
About a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I've gotten somehow more optimistic about Shake. The other day I was thinking about Shake's game, and I was just like, Tracy McGrady. That's it. Like, he'll just be Tracy. I just feel like he's really good, and I believe in him so much.
Tracy McGrady was like the best player in the league for a minute.
I know. I know.
So Tracy McGrady reminds me of my boss used to be this guy, Tim Sabian, who went to be Howard Stern's boss at SiriusXM, if people recognize the name. And Tim always told me that the funniest person you ever met is the guy you met at a party, told you one great joke, walked away, and you never saw him again. And I feel like that's Shake. Like, we saw those 8 games, and I know we've seen other Shake, but the last thing we saw was those 8 games where he looked incredible, and that's what stuck in our mind. So the feeling that I've had about the Sixers as they've ramped back up is, how at the beginning, like right before a season, we do this thing where we hear all these quotes and we talk ourselves into the Sixers. We're like, oh my God, it's going to be great this year. Here's what's going to go right. Here's what's going to go right. This is happening this year, except we just saw them, this exact team.
That's right.
And I can't shake, no, not on purpose there. I can't shake like what I saw. So instead of it pumping me up, it's just giving me anxiety, like the anxiety of having to watch them again, I guess.
I feel that I'm more, if you put aside the sheer panic of the coronavirus cases going up everywhere, and especially where the NBA is headed, and more and more people every day coming out that they tested positive for it, I'm more excited about watching basketball again. I stayed up last night just watching old basketball highlights, and I'm just like, I miss it a lot. I've been getting through this when I have nothing to do, or I'm waiting for Alyssa to like get ready to go for a run or something, I'll just put on this like the Duke South Carolina game from a few years ago, Jason Tatum's last game. So I've just been watching it. Sindarius Thornwell looking good. I really miss basketball a lot. So that I'm not anxious. In fact, I place my head onto the what's the thing that comes down that slices your head up?
Guillotine?
The guillotine. That's it. I'm willingly placing my head and neck in there, allowing for the Sixers to just chop a sort of dull knife over and over again into the back of my neck.
Wow.
Because I miss it so much, and I know what is coming, because we all do, because we're Sixers fans and we've lived through this.
Yeah.
But I miss it. I miss ball. It's weirdly a very large part of my life since I've been alive, and so not having it makes all the days feel the same. And they're different, not that the days don't feel the same when the Sixers are blowing a third quarter lead,
Right.
but still.
Yeah. Wait till
spice to it.
very soon they're going to feel a completely different kind of the same.
That's right. That's right.
And then finally, Brett Brown was asked about Al Horford being a starter and what his role will be. And the quote again from Kyle: "There's kind of an Al team and a team Joel, and there's an integration of the two of them." Well, okay, I guess he's not going to start. There's just no way he starts. By the way, we didn't hear. I don't think have we heard from Al Horford at all during this whole period? I feel like we've seen a little video from everybody.
I don't know. I mean, he's a pretty not social media guy.
Yeah. Like somebody else.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think hopefully a little rest, a little time alone, a little time to breathe, and with a very focused couple games into a playoff, that Al can be a very good backup center and an occasionally fine playing alongside Joel. That's all we need. We're overpaying him for it? Absolutely. But give me just the very necessary things we need that we didn't have last year when we had to start Greg Monroe when Embiid was hurt or sick.
Greg Monroe,
who
they just signed like 2 weeks before or so.
I know. So if that's all we get, that's all that we need. We're not asking Al Horford to like take over the game. Just stem the tide, hold down the fort when Joel sits for 8 minutes a game. That's all. I think it's possible.
I'm going to do 2 quick mailbag questions, and then we'll get to Patrick. The second, I'm going to do them from 2 different people. The first I really liked, and then the second one I think will lead us into where we're going with Patrick, because it's a TV-related question. So this one comes from Mark. He says, "My wife and I are expecting our first child," and he can send us emails at rightstoRickySanchez@gmail.com. "My wife and I are expecting our first child later this year, and one of the ways we've been passing the time during quarantine is discussing baby names. We don't even know the sex of the baby yet, but I was wondering, are there any baby names that you think only a process truster / Ricky listener would instantly recognize, but would completely go over the head of your regular NBA or even Sixers fan? I.e., naming the baby Joel Embiid wouldn't work because everyone would get the reference, not just Ricky fans."
Sure.
So we did have someone name their daughter with a T and a J for TJ, their first 2 initials.
But that's not necessarily a reference, That's something you can tell people, hey, I named it after
Right.
TJ for TJ.
So you want something to really light up the...
It has to be probably like a pretty deep Sixers reference for it to not apply to regular, The first name 9 and the middle name is a beautiful, I'd say, name. If you if that's, regardless of your baby's gender, is a lovely name.
Maybe Alvic 8064. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Still balling.
Still balling. You Eric or Erica Jr.
Erica Jr. is very nice.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of a name that the Sixers have had that would be gender neutral because they don't know if it's a boy or a girl yet, and would also check this box.
Yeah, I mean, you would do something like the first names of two like very processed players.
Yeah.
That would be like Jeremy Hollis, whatever, Johnson.
Yeah, but Jeremy is not Jeremy's an obvious boy. I'm trying to give him a name.
I think Jeremy is. I know a couple of Jeremy girls.
Really?
Actually.
Okay,
Especially if you spell it in a more
with a
I mean,
Y.
Jeremy
or
Grant
something.
spells it an interesting way.
I'm trying to think if there's another Casper.
I don't think you go right to where with Casper.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
closer to Ghost or Mattress.
Yeah. Well, they're not paying, so don't even say that. Absolutely not.
No, not
at
all. I sleep on a dog bed.
Yeah, you and me both. And then a second question. This comes from. I feel like we've gotten an email from him before, and Declan, D-E-C, Declan. Right, we've done this before. I've never seen the names before. That name before. I was except for the last time that I didn't remember how to pronounce it. I was delighted to hear you guys were enjoying Devs, and I was just curious as to what your final thoughts were on the big question of the show. We don't have free will, do we? Thanks for keeping us briefly entertained during this ridiculous time.
There's absolutely no way to talk about this without spoiling the show.
You don't? Well, I haven't watched the last episode.
Well, then there's definitely no way that I can talk to you about it without spoiling the show. I will say, because you don't know, I don't want to spoil anything, but I get frustrated when there's the concept of free will, and when you tell someone, hey, you don't have free will, so you're going to do this thing.
Right. It almost makes you want to do it.
Or not do it.
Right, yes.
They'll be like, well, I can just drive away, and I won't do it, and I'll stop myself from doing it.
Yeah.
If I don't know about it, fine. Then you can say that my body will make the natural whatever, my brain processes or whatever. But this idea that you tell me, hey, as an example, like you're going to kill your dad. It's like, no, I won't. Like, I just won't do it. I'll tell him to go somewhere else or don't tell me where you are. And then I won't be able to find him.
Yeah.
Like, I know that I'm thinking on a very basic, I would simply just not do the thing that free will is telling me I can't do. But I think it's when you cross this is someone all-knowing or whatever is going to tell you, here's what you are going to do. And I'd be like, well, fuck you.
Well,
bro.
I mean, it's a difficult argument. The free will argument is not specific to devs. I can tell you that. And that the whole idea of this happened and you did this because this happened and that happened because this happened is a thing that gets in your head and can fucking rot your brain because it's right. But just because something happened because something else happened doesn't mean that was the only thing that could have happened, I guess.
Yeah. And especially like even, talking about Pat, like
yeah.
I have my history with, in terms of how I make a decision when we're like debating how to handle something, and he has his. And so if we're coming to an agreement, then, sometimes it's a one for me, one for him kind of thing. And we're in terms of tactics, like as far as that goes. So I think that there's some level of your past. If you can like look back at your past, and you can do it with the Sixers, right? You can look back at the Sixers past and say like, because they did this, it means that like that is going to happen or that's not going to happen. But there's still a lot of, gray in the middle that keeps it from fully going that way. If
maybe,
then we get into multiple worlds theories.
Yeah.
And, what if the coin lands on this side? What if Kawhi's shot didn't go in? Which I'm certain it didn't in many other timelines.
Well, it would, if there are multi worlds, then every version of went in and every version of didn't go in,
That's right.
So as we get to the script, the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is brought to you by the official sponsor of the Brotherly Love script, Touchstone Home Products. That is Touchstone Electric Fireplaces right there in Exton, Pennsylvania. Thank you, Touchstone, for matching the donations, which will be good. We'll announce them, I think, on this weekend's pod, what we raised for Coded by Kids in the Providence Animal Center. Thanks, Frank. And,
Very exciting.
Frank, I sent the script today. He's going to record a review that we will air on this weekend's pod. Well, he's a sponsor.
Frank, do me a favor. Compliments only. You can send me your notes privately.
Yeah.
I will delete them.
Hey,
but you can
go to do me a favor. Go to zerodeadbirds.com right now and go to the electric fireplaces section and look at, you can go to any section on the website, but go to the electric fireplaces section and look at the gallery. I want you to look at how awesome these things look. That is, I would say, I always talk about the things that it's not. You know, it's not a regular fireplace. You don't have all the stuff all the problems that a regular fireplace has. The annoying smell, the cleanup, the possible dead birds in the chimney, which I'm convinced do happen. But that's what I talk about what it's not. What it is it looks awesome. It's a perfect flame every time. It's recessed into your wall. You know, you put it wherever you want. You put it under your TV. You put it in your bedroom. It gives that vibe. It does give off heat. They have all sorts of sizes from 3 feet wide to 100 inches wide. And the flame itself, like, make it look like it's raging, make it look like it's quiet. I just think, man,
you can do it based on your mood.
Yeah.
If you're like sort of fired up,
dude,
or if you're chill.
You want a romantic night, or if you want a night where, you know, she's thinking, is that fire too big? It's going to hurt us. Whatever you want. And there's no danger. It does have warmth to it. I'm telling you, if you do not have, even if you do, I have a regular fireplace in my house. I haven't even touched it because of all the hassle. We had my dad on for Father's Day. He was like, that thing's a fucking pain in the ass. The ash all over the family room. Get yourself a Touchstone electric fireplace. Easy to install. And right here in Exton, they are working. So you will have it, even if you're outside the local area, deliveries in 2 or 3 days max. Go to zerodeadbirds.com. That's zerodeadbirds.com. And you're talking, by the way, you're not talking thousands and thousands of dollars. You're talking about $800, $1,000, $1,100 for,
nice.
You know, it's great. So go to zerodeadbirds.com and
tasteful.
Very tasteful. Tasteful. It's fucking awesome. Are you kidding? Go to zerodeadbirds.com. Use promo code TTP for 15% off. That is Touchstone Electric Fireplaces. You want to call Patrick?
He should be on any second.
All right. We'll just keep going then. Do you want another mailbag question? We had a couple of basketball ones.
I bet he's on within the next 10 seconds.
Wow.
If you just want to cut it after.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Move it together.
Patrick Kane. Patrick Kane.
Are we doing the album review? We were supposed to do it last week?
Yeah, we'll just wait till Sunday at this point. Yeah.
Okay. This is one I listened to this one twice.
It's a good record.
No spoilers. I might have enjoyed it.
There he is.
Looking good in his Big East shirt.
Do you hear him?
I'm here.
Oh, welcome,
Come
Patrick
on.
Kane.
Yeah.
Writing
I got a rep. You hear me?
Yeah. Do you hear us?
What's up?
Wow. This is
I hear you.
Mike.
Yes, I do.
Mike. He's hearing us on a little bit of a delay.
This is how it goes. This is what you deal with.
So
I can hear you.
yeah.
I was so excited to say Grandpa figured it out, and now there's a delay.
Yeah. We had my
Grandpa.
dad.
Grandpa did the bare minimum, though.
Yeah,
I just turned 34,
really
so I yeah.
Yeah.
Is
Very
there a
nice.
full screen? Is there a button? Yeah.
So you're wearing a Big East shirt. Where are you from? Where's your origination? What is your origin story?
Good old Lansdale, PA. North Penn High School.
That's right.
So long time, obviously grew up watching Big East basketball, so near and dear to my heart, but went to Arizona State for school. So a little bit of a departure there.
Mm-hmm.
My dad is from Hawaii. My mom is from Wilkes-Barre. So classic connection there.
You hear about that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, Wilkes-Barre, Nardone's Pizza, putting that on the map.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for having me. I mean, you guys have had Alyssa on many times. You've had Glenn. I was starting to think I was getting.
That's right. And that was the plan. He doesn't listen to the podcast, which I get. I wouldn't listen to the podcast either. He talks to me more than you are. The two of you guys are the two men I talk to the most in the world.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
right.
it's a lot. And so I get why he doesn't listen. And to the same, I get why Spike doesn't listen to me and Pat's conversation.
He hasn't read Brotherly Love.
Watches our
He hasn't
show.
read Brotherly Love. Yeah.
I have read Brotherly Love. I've read it here. We will get to Brotherly Love. Absolutely. So, can you tell me? This is all very interesting to me. So, can you tell me how you become a writing partner with Mike? How does that happen?
Now it's just now it's just like we're in general mode.
Do
This is our
do we?
meeting voice.
But this is good though
Well,
because
I think
normally
people want to know. I think people want to know because people know the me and Mike origin story, but they don't know the Mike and Patrick origin story.
It similarly started with hatred of Howard Eskin. Actually. Same
Hatred-
type of thing.
Hey, well, real quick departure. So my Hawaiian dad, who they don't have sports teams there, and you sort of just like adopt and pick up like whatever team where you move, right?
Mhm.
And so he's lived in Arizona, and he sort of pulled for the Cardinals then, and now he lives out in LA, and hopes the Rams do well, but doesn't really care. But like Philly, he lived there for a long time, and so one of my earliest memories is driving around as a kid in like this beat up station wagon, like maybe 5-6 years old, and the radio was busted. So my dad had this portable radio, and I would sit in the passenger seat and just hold the radio and like put the antenna like around and he would listen to 610 WIP and would just like curse at like your dad and like Angelo Cataldi and Mike Missinelli, all these guys, right, that are like still doing it, I think.
Mhm.
And I remember just being like, and he's like smoking a cigarette and like yelling about like, get Fred Barnett the ball, and I'm just like, why do you listen to these people that you seemingly hate? Like you're just screaming at the radio that I'm holding. So it was pretty intense, but it's the perfect way to be for a foreigner, so be it, to be indoctrinated into like Philly sports, the sort of love hate of all that.
I was in an Uber once with a guy who he recognized my name from the Uber, and it turned out like he was a WIP like super fan, but he was from a non-English speaking country, and he basically had learned how to speak English, he told me, by listening to WIP, which is the fucking greatest thing.
Really wide vocabulary.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
So we became a writing team. Pat and I met on How I Met Your Mother. We were both assistants on that show, and then we were sort of doing our own thing. Pat went to Fresh Off the Boat to continue being an assistant, as I did this show called Your Family or Mine, which nobody watched, and The Grinder, which we promoted and got a lot of Philadelphia area people to watch just my episode.
Mm-hmm.
And you're still close to Rob Lowe till this day.
And I'm very close. Rob and I are very friends. He's a friend. And then we teamed up, and we've been together ever since. So it's been a fruitful partnership that somehow did not start in the confines of Neshaminy Mall, or
it didn't, or Warrington Theater or any of those. We didn't. We were like ships in the night getting our pretzel bites with cheese, just going into different movies. And it's so much better, honestly. When people ask us in meetings, right, with like networks or studios, like, how did you guys meet? And like, we sort of tell the story, but it's so hard to tell the true story without being like, oh, well, we G-chatted about like Gary Neal, like obviously that's like what we did and how we like bonded, sort of. So that sort of happened first, and then kind of, became more sort of like professional partners down the line. So friends first, and then more blossomed from it.
And isn't that just the way it should be, romantically speaking? Come on.
Well, so it is interesting.
Absolutely.
I understand why you wouldn't listen to the pod as someone who hears this. My wife does not listen to the podcast. I wouldn't want to hear me extra anyway. But you are a basketball guy, so that it does make it a little weird. Like, are you what team are you? I bet you're a college basketball guy, but do you have a pro basketball team? Like, what's your basketball deal?
I'm a little bit. I mean, this might sound like I'm sort of escaping the question, but I'm a little bit of a transient. Like, so I grew up, and I had an older brother who was a Suns fan, and so like I loved, the Barkley Suns for that era. And then obviously when Iverson came to the Sixers, was pulling for them, all that. Sort of went back to the Suns when Nash went there, and that's when I was in college at ASU. So as far as like loyalties, like I'm a little slutty, you know what I'm saying? I sort of go from place to place, whatever is like interesting, to me or whoever I'm pulling for. But I guess I'd say I'm more of like the sports is theater person, where I like sort of just enjoy the big games and enjoy the storylines and sort of love watching like, the history happen and all that stuff. But obviously, big Sixers fan now, mostly because of Mike.
That's right. He's as much of a college basketball psycho as you'll find, and a big University of Arizona basketball fan. That I think all
Arizona guy. That's like my main team.
Right. It's all bottled into Arizona, and I've seen Pat be just so devastated about just Arizona at a bar when they lost to Wichita State or to Wisconsin, like some just really like hard, heavy hitting beats. And so I think if that happened, if he felt that way about the Sixers or Eagles or whatever, and not just a fan of the sport in general, I don't think that he would have the bandwidth to survive. I think it's just he has to be a fan of the pageantry and the milieu more than just like a riding for a team in specific.
Arizona basketball to me is Damon Stoudemire, right? Damon Stoudemire is in Arizona, right?
Oh, Muddy Mouse. I mean, you can go on and on.
Yeah.
Khalid Reeves was his backcourt mate, underrated.
Yeah.
But look, once you shed tears over Caleb Tarzuski, that's sort of a low point, and you're looking to come back from that, So I've sort of like I've emotionally distanced myself. I know who I am. Yeah, I got two straight Elite Eight losses to Wisconsin, where like the same teams were playing each other, like kind of broke me a little bit. Like it was and TJ's final game, like crying in Sean Miller's arms.
TJ.
Come on. So Pat's a big TJ guy and was always a TJ guy. When he transferred from Duquesne, Pat was like, I believe in this kid. He's really got something. At TJ's last game in Arizona, he ran to the center and kissed the floor, which is like Pat definitely wept for that, and definitely something Sixers fans can identify with. And so when we're jumping ahead a little bit here, but when Spike, you and I obviously met TJ a handful of times, and we'll talk to him here and there. But Pat hadn't, and there was so much emotion built up for TJ in Pat. And so when we through Ben and his brother, we got tickets to I think it was it Sixers Lakers? Yeah.
Lakers
game, and we like went back after the game and like to the friends and family or whatever, and actually that's when we met Ben's parents. But TJ was also there, and I kind of just like pulled TJ aside, and TJ knows you, Spike, more than he knows me. So, but I was just like, hey TJ, Mike, Spike asked getting Rights to Ricky Sanchez. Oh, right. And then Alyssa was there, and she met him, and that was great. And then I was like, and this is my writing partner Patrick, and Pat's eyes, like the biggest cartoon eyes you could possibly see. And the way Pat tells it is that like they had an emotional connection, like he knew they knew the heartbreak that they had went through, and it didn't need to be said.
I had so much to say, but I knew I had a short amount of time. And so, like, as a writer, just trying to make that emotional connection. So I was going to be like, do I talk about, like, Pittsburgh and Duquesne and the Sixers? And then I just said, I was just, like, shook his hand, and he held my hand pretty tight. And I said, so many great memories. I was like, you're one of my favorite Zona players. And we locked eyes, and, like, I saw the montage of heartbreak, like, beam into both of us together for about 0.5 seconds.
That's all you needed.
Yeah, it was. And we meet so many, actors and famous people, and that was like one of the more starstruck, people
I've seen. When you meet
seen.
people you're excited to meet, it's not usually, but you always take the chance of it being a bummer. But TJ is such a genuine, nice guy. Like he's never not been that. So I'm glad that he was that to you, because he's always been super nice to us. And he came out at New Year's Eve, we brought 400 people to Indianapolis to go see him, and he came out and spent, an hour and a half at a New Year's Eve party with Sixers fans in Indianapolis and took pictures with each one of them. So,
what a guy.
So, all right. So, to brotherly love, I have a question for both of you. Patrick first, then Mike. You write this show Doesn't get picked up, but like obviously you worked very hard on it. It was a like an opportunity for you guys. And then the first time the public gets to consume it is with this fucking weird thing. So my question is, what is like, were there nerves or like, what is it, something that you created goes out into the public for the first time? What did it feel like releasing it that way?
Go for it.
I would say I was just, because the heartbreak was like a while ago now, you know, it was over a year. It was like a year and a half ago. Not that I remember, January 2019, got the call, all that. Yeah. But like it had time to sort of sit with it and mourn that, you know, stages of grief. And now it's more just like, especially because it's a, you know, great thing for charity and it's like a Philly centric thing. I'm more basically just excited that people get to sort of read it and see all the little Easter eggs. So sort of detached as like a, you know, the quality of writing sort of thing, and more just kind of like, oh, like hopefully people don't hate it, but I think maybe they'll, you know, find something fun that they can relate to and laugh, basically.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
how I feel.
I was always, it was very cool that we got to do this. Like that was always the case. And we got paid pretty decent money to like actually do this. We would have done it for free. Like it's with LeBron's company. It's with Ben Simmons. It was dope. I mean, like it was wild. And it was very, fun to not criticize Ben for a year or however long it was.
It did. If I was like leaning anti-Ben, this had to turn me like way to the other side.
I think so for sure. And I was just like, go for it.
Yeah.
Okay. One time, I think I said this, but Pat did tell me to delete a couple anti-Ben tweets one time after the playoff game. He was like, maybe don't say.
I felt like I'm like the wet blanket. Like, yeah, I was like, hey man, you should like probably watch your tone. Like, what if he sees this?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like,
That's right.
and he's like, this is what people expect from me. This is my brand. I was like, I know,
Yeah, it was like that. But
it was
the kind of thing that I always knew, and we always had a pretty good idea that just the way things go in this industry, a lot of pilots get bought, not that many pilots get picked up to pilot, even fewer get picked up to series. And so it was always a pipe dream. I was, for my own like mental state, I was always at a place where, because at that time of our careers, we had only been on one show together. We'd only been staffed on Trial and Error for 2 years. And so this was the thing we did right after that. And so now we've been on a couple things since. And so we're at a slightly better place in our careers now. But especially then, it was like, they're not going to make a show from like these young kids that like, you know, why would they do this? Like everything's so political in terms of who they have to give shows to and give favors to and whatever. So I was telling myself that the whole process. I was like, we got a good script. We're excited about it. We get to go to this fucking Sixers-Lakers game. That was dope. But really, they're never going to pick it up. And then as it got closer and they were making decisions, I was like, they could fucking pick it up. They're going to fucking do this. We're going to make a show. Like you started to psych yourself into actually believing it's possible and then set up for like true.
You start checking deadline and all that, you know.
When it's like, they didn't.
Well, so how do you feel though with people reading it though, I guess? Mike.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, you know me. I think you asked me to do this before or something like this, and I'm just like, I don't know, making it about myself and all that kind of stuff. I'd rather make it about like us as like a process, but it's because it's such a special weird thing that I got to do this. I have a Sixers podcast and we got to do a Ben Simmons show, and we are happy with the script. Like it's a network show, and like, you know, in a Parks and Rec vein, I think it's funny. I think it's cool, and I think it's a story that you don't really see on network a lot, and so we're certainly proud of it. So it's not like anything I'm super nervous about, I guess. I mean, I want to hear people like it and stuff, but John Gonzalez read it. He asked to read it like a couple weeks ago, and that was actually the impetus to do it. Was John read it and he was like texting and like was excited about it and was pissed off that that didn't go. And I think that, like I told you before, Spike, when people read my writing, Sharp included of a few years ago, and now John being like surprised that it's
good,
readable or decent. What I do for a living. Do you read an article like someone in the paper is like, look at this, honey? Person can read.
Well, Patrick, you get to be involved as we talk about our sponsors, because we have a couple more of those. So you get to hear about Draft Kings Sportsbook. Oh no.
Oh, he likes that.
Oh no. Did Patrick just turn into a silhouette for you, or do you see him?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't
see him. Now I just hear him, but whatever. DraftKings Sportsbook is the presenting sponsor of the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. Finally, lines for NBA games. That's right. the opening lines, the August 1st lines, July 30th and July 31st and August 1st lines for NBA games. All right, Mike. Sixers Pacers. Pacers officially the home game. What do you think the line is?
I saw
Oh,
it.
you saw it. Okay. All right. So Sixers are 4-point
Ooh,
favorites.
I love this game. Wait, should I guess the line?
Yeah, I already
Guess the line.
I already told you. Do you want me to give you
That's
another
what I would have
line?
guessed. So.
Do you want me to give you another line that you can
Sure.
guess? All right. Rockets away. Well, I mean, everybody's in the same place. So Rockets Mavericks.
I'll go Rockets by 3.
Rockets are -1.5. You want to play this game one more time? Guess the lines. I've never heard of this game before. It's never been done on any other podcast before.
That's right. We do a lot of this during the first 6 hours of when we're supposed to be working. So we
okay.
do 6 hours of guessing the lines and probably throwing old, basketball reference pages up and then time to lock in.
All right.
Bit.
Finally, Celtics Bucks, July 31st.
I'll say Bucks
5.5. 5.5.
Minus 4.5.
So there you go. You could bet on UFC. You can bet on Korean baseball, Premier League, and I don't want to brag or anything, but in the Draft Kings casino, I did kind of cash in on blackjack this week. It was the best blackjack week I've ever had. I actually
using your strategy.
I did use my strategy, and Mike, I'm not kidding when I tell you I started with $50 and I ended up depositing $750 in my PayPal account.
Woo!
That's what I'm saying. Look.
And did you do that? You do it every time? 50 every time you drop it back into the thing?
So
you're breaking even and just going up levels at a time?
So yes. Wow. Yeah. So DraftKings Sportsbook and Casino app, download it right now. It is the top-rated sportsbook app in the App Store. All kinds of casino games in addition to the sports I was just talking about, blackjack, roulette. I think there's basketball roulette now, table games with live dealers. Legal, safe. I withdrew the money yesterday, and it was in my PayPal account today, right away. The deposits are super easy as well, and they support the Ricky. Come on. New promos every day, and I'm sure as baseball and NBA start, they'll have even better ones. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook and Casino app now. Use promo code RTRS to play up to $200 of casino games risk-free. That's promo code RTRS to play risk-free up to $200 for your first 24 hours of casino play on DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, Pennsylvania only, in partnership with Hollywood Casino at Penn National Racecourse. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. So the show. So the first thing I wanted to ask, it's really difficult for me, by the way, to read. I'm not a big reader anyway. I really only read, especially fiction, because I have trouble following it. So I'd say the best thing about reading a script is it says who is talking all the time. So it's easier for me to follow. Fiction, I have a hard time getting ready because I'm like, wait a minute, who's that person again? The hard thing reading a script is that it's just like the flow is a little bit different, so it's a little bit harder for me to like get in the flow of the story. The mom seemed like the character that I felt the most. I don't know why. There was something about the mom where I was like, I know this fucking mom. So my question is the mom based on like, is it like a combination of moms? Like, how do you come up with a character, and like, how much do you think about who that person is before you write down their words?
I would say classic mom-com, where me and Mike both have plenty of fun stories to draw on from both of our mothers. So anytime we're writing something, like, that's always a very good well to go to. So because you're trying to sort of like find real things that people do that are funny, and then try to like distill that into, your own thing or whatever this character is that you're creating. But in this case, we also had Ben's real mom, and who we like talked about with Sean Tribe, who was involved with the project since the beginning. And he basically said the only rule was that my mom has to be Australian in the show. That was like the only thing he said, the only stipulation, basically. So yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, we tried to make it a mom that like Philly could embrace a little bit, which hopefully comes through.
Yeah, in the pitch when we were trying to sell the show before the script was written, and you go through each character and talk about like, all right, he's this kind of person, she's this kind of person, they're like this, and you try to make it dynamic in a way. When we talked about Sandra, who plays who's the character of Ben's mom, whose real name is Julie. Sandra was we went through like a history of Philly's Philly sports moms, and so we showed the picture of Wilma McNabb in the Campbell's Chunky Noodle Soups commercials, and Iverson's mom braiding Iverson's hair on the bench, and so just trying to like make it so it like is a character, but like Pat said, like making it so that it's an embraceable mom. And if the show were to go to, it feels a little pathetic to say this, but if the show were to go to series, if they had picked it up, there would have been a lot of like having fun with what Sandra was doing in Philly, and it would have been a cool thing to see.
You touched on what Sean told you. That was another question I had. How much of the characters that you wrote were based on what he told you about his family? Like how much of that, and how much of it was you just saying this would be fun for this character to be?
A combo, right?
A combo, yeah. Like I think that you try to stay with like a sort of like a baseline of reality and sort of like strong characteristics. Like, you know, for instance, like Sean's character Graham being like, well, I'm moving from Australia to Philly, and my older brother is like, or my younger brother is now like a superstar, and like that remains the same, and that's something that was true, right? And like their parents sort of moving, and the dad being American and the mom Julie in real, you know, being from Australia. Try to keep as much as you can, but then when it sort of spawns out, that's where, you know, sort of it's not based in reality anymore. It's more about like what's working for the character and the story and stuff like that.
And we were worried about Ben or Sean or their parents being, you know, because when it's a story like, hey, this is about your life, and now me and Pat are on a show about Dwayne Johnson's life, and he has thoughts like, oh, my mom was more like this, or my dad was more like this. And he's been great, but we were especially worried about it with people that like have not been in film or television before. Like it's not like the Simmons family was like, you know, producing other stuff. So this is their first thing, and we thought that they would be, you know, more precious about things, just because I guess I would be. And they weren't. They were really like very game the whole time to like, you know, have us run with the characters and do whatever worked for the story for the, you know, that the studio or network was you know, wanting it to head towards. And so it was really like an incredibly painless experience. I was like more painless than I thought. Aside from maybe painful for Spike for having to be anti Ben Simmons so I could be his biggest fan. It was fun for me.
So this might seem like a ridiculous question, because obviously, like, I watched Chernobyl and nobody is speaking Russian. Everybody's just speaking with like not even a Russian accent. They didn't even, some of them sounded English. But this is a family that is from Australia. Did you imagine it as like a bunch of people that sounded like they were from Australia? Like, if this had made it to series, would you have casted people who had accents or could do accents, or what?
We would have. I mean, we're always sort of like, you know, stopping ourselves and being like, are we really going to find a tall actor to play, you know, Ben's character that's kind of has a half Australian accent and a half American accent? Or are we going to find like, you know, a young comedian from Australia to play Graham? And we always sort of chalked it up to that's a problem for another day. And we never got to that other day, basically. So, but yeah, that would have been
we for sure imagined them being, especially Graham and Sandra, the character based on the brother and the mom being Australian, and then we were going to have the dad, and the dad who is from, you know, Ben's dad, Dave, is really from the Bronx, so have him be American and Ben be American enough because he played enough basketball around the country the way Ben did here.
Were there any people, I don't know if this is like a thing that you can say, but when you thought about these characters, were there any specific actors that you thought, oh, this is like, I'm thinking of this person when I'm thinking of this character, for anyone?
We have like an ideal casting situation that never saw the light of day.
Could you say it?
But
Or no?
We wanted Dennis Haysbert
wait,
for
I'll
the
think-
dad.
Oh,
The Allstate
oh, that's
guy?
perfect.
That's Allstate, Stan.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
yeah,
would've been-
that would have been great.
Yeah.
Right age,
That would've been
yeah. Anyone else? Do you have anyone else?
for the mom, when we were looking through Australian actresses and stuff,
Oh,
and so we were in a place where it was like, well, is there somebody? There's a Jackie Weaver is an Australian actress. You've seen her and stuff. We had what else? We had what's her name? I have sometimes bad memory with this.
But like the thing is, inevitably it gets to like, can Candice Bergen play Australian? Yeah, like we believe, like that's like the
Toni
reality
Collette
of what
would've been
happens,
cool.
basically.
Or like a Jean
Yeah.
Smart if she could do the accent. Like it was we were down that road a little bit, but there wasn't. It was never close enough to do it. You know.
And is it possible? Is it
Yeah.
possible that Mike was explaining the writing team concept to me before? Like, is it possible that one of you gets called and they're like, "Nah, I don't want the other one"? Like, what happens? Can that happen? I suppose it.
It's happened to other people before.
Okay. Yeah.
It can happen.
You just kind of.
We there's like legendary stories of like this show asked one person back, but they didn't ask the other
Oh,
person.
man.
It's like, oh, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
Like that's the sort of like writers' room gossip and stuff. Never happened.
And the funny thing is, you only hear like more if the other guy picked himself up by the bootstraps and like, succeeded wildly beyond any of their imaginations. If they sort of just went off into obscurity, you're like, oh, what happened to that
There's
guy?
a lot of writing teams that are just sort of a partnership of convenience, I think, of like, oh, whatever. But because me and Pat had the bedrock of like a genuine, like, close friendship before, I think it makes it easier to be able to, like, we can have fights about, like, disagreeing on whatever line or script or whatever, and then still be like, all right, like, we understand each other. Because this is interesting for me because Spike, in our relationship, I'm the Pat and you're the Mike. Not in the sense that you do all the work, but like you are more obsessive and more like every single thing has to be a thing. And I have to, because we can't both be that, you know what I mean? For the podcast sake, I've been like, all right, I'll be Pat and just kind of be like, easy going. And it's nicer to be Pat. People like Pat more than they like me. So it's nice for a change to be in that level. And then when I'm with Pat, it's like, okay, I also was our delineation of duties. I was a writer's assistant. Mm-hmm. And so that means like you're on the keys in the room, like typing everything, and like for the shows when we were still assistants. And so I have like obsessive, like compulsive, like everything needs to make sense in that way. And Pat is just like, sure, you type whatever the fuck you want, I don't care. And so like it's become an easy relationship. But it's funny to see the two of you guys who I am different people too.
And that sort of comes out. I think we complement each other well in that regard, because you're a little more like, you process things like quicker than I do, and I like to marinate on things and sort of be like, well, like, who knows? Like, it could be this thing that we haven't thought of yet. Like, what is the existential thing or something? And when we do,
that's the Hawaii in you. I have only Philly.
Yeah. And so when we do like pitches and stuff where we're gonna like basically like performatively pitch a show or whatever, we write in our document, Mike's words are bolded and my words are italicized because I'm finesse and Mike brings the hammer down. That's sort of like how it goes.
Well, what would you say, Patrick, to somebody who asks you what it's like? Because obviously you guys spend a lot of time together, more time than most coworkers spend together. What is it like working with Mike that closely, that much?
You can be honest.
Yeah.
Well, going back to the podcast thing, if I talk to anybody for that long during the day, I would not listen to their podcast. Like, I don't care if they had like the news of the day. I'd be like, I don't fucking care. Like, whatever. I don't have to wear like whatever. But I mean, I think that it's like ultimately rewarding. I mean, we obviously have our disagreements and stuff because we are like very different people, I'd say, in a lot of ways. But also, I think the things that tie us together creatively are the sort of our commonalities. Like, we've always had a similar sensibility with like TV and movies and obscure college prospects that never made it in the NBA. But yeah, and I mean, it's also sort of hard to answer right now because we talk on the phone so much more because everything's remote now.
Yeah.
So literally spending 4 to 5 hours a day, like just walking around my house with Mike in my ear, being like, all right, before we get started, Ricky Watters scored how many touchdowns in 1997? We're very good at procrastinating together, maybe even more than we are working together. So
Yeah.
True. All right, I want to dig more into the show, but before I do, our final sponsor of the pod, Mike, I actually have some great news about this sponsor. Great news for everybody listening. So Adam Kasabi, the official realtor of the process, Mike, Adam Kasabi has re-signed on with the Ricky, like forever. We're basically signing a lifetime contract.
Wow.
His deal with
The Kenny Thomas contract.
Yes, his deal was up at the end of June, and we spoke, and he's so happy and so excited to be part of everything that Adam Kasabi continues to sponsor Sixers Adam and continues to be a Ricky sponsor. So
I love that. Do we get to announce the name yet or no?
no, that is settling on July 7th. So we'll be able to announce the name right after July 7th. That person asked me to wait till after settlement. And we said this before. So Adam specializes in real estate at the Delaware beaches, but can help you with anything. So I wanted to refinance my house. My mortgage rate is 3.65, which is fine, but like mortgage rates are lower now. So I asked Adam, I'm like, hey, what should I do? He's like, here's my guy. Obviously, Adam's not a mortgage lender, but he sent me to his guy. His guy's fucking great. And we're gonna refinance my house in the next couple of weeks, but he's gonna make sure he finds me the best rate. That's the thing. Even if you don't want to buy a beach house in Delaware, any sort of real estate question, concern, help, he's your guy. He'll connect you to the right guy. Delaware beaches is where he specializes. We haven't talked about Bethany yet. Bethany is cheaper than Rehoboth. It's cheaper than Lewis. It has a boardwalk, family activities. The beach is awesome. Like a single family home, a mile from the beach, around $300,000. He just sold a 4-bedroom townhouse for about $500, 100 feet from the beach. And remember, you're renting these the whole year or most of the summer. So they are paying your mortgage for you. You're going down for the few weeks every summer. You have your own house to go to. There's a nice stretch between Dewey and Bethany. Dewey's a little more like Jersey Shore-ish, a little more party. And there's like famous people there. Isn't what's his name? Fucking Philippi is a Dewey Beach guy. So low interest rates, low property taxes in Delaware, and good guy. So he's the guy you want to go to. Call or text Adam at 302-864-8643. I say fuck the Jersey beaches. Go to Delaware. 302-864-8643 or email adam@processrealtor.com. Okay. So I'll tell you another moment I had reading the script is when Ben shoots the napkin. Even the act of fake Ben shooting a jumper, even with a napkin, made me nervous. And I was like, I couldn't believe the first basketball thing we saw was him shooting.
Yeah.
Was that a consideration?
Yeah.
Okay, that was the one thing that we were like a little, had to be delicate with or whatever, kind of.
Delicate with the whole fucking last 3 pages.
I know. That was the thing I don't want to spoil it for everybody, but that was the part of when I mentioned it a couple podcasts ago of the concerning thing that we were like, hey, should we ask if we can make Ben Simmons shooting a part of the show? And they were like, yeah, totally cool. And I was like,
we're like, if we call him an Adonis on like how many pages will that make up for saying that he doesn't want to shoot?
The answer is yes. The answer is yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. A couple other questions, just going through it. And everybody, we've mentioned, go to rightstoRickySanchez.com. You can order the script. The proceeds go to only $5. Proceeds go to Providence Animal Center and Coded by Kids. What's the dad's name again?
Clyde.
Says something about him making a grilled cheese so bad, like they throw it out. Who's ever made a bad grilled cheese? How does that even happen? Is it burnt? Like how are we ruining a grilled cheese?
Well, I believe the line is more grilly than cheesy, and if you wanna sort of dissect that, I guess the bad grilly would be too burnt too much bread, sort of like haphazard, and like the cheese is sort of an afterthought. Maybe you weren't even using the best cheese. And so you just want to paint an image that basically it's all a means to an end, like writing wise, to get him saying that he's the guy who tries to cheer up Graham and trying to find like a funny specific for that is kind of, yeah.
And we thought that was that true to life, at least from what we heard from Ben and Sean, is that like, Sean wasn't raised by, or isn't Dave's biological son, but he grew up with him and was raised by him. And so the idea that Dave, who's this black guy from the Bronx and now lives in Australia, marries this woman and basically adopts her white son, and now has this like famous one son that is biologically his and son that he has that is not, is such an interesting relationship. And to have that character be like Dave Simmons, try to like treat them the same, felt real to us and also very funny, because it's like, well, this one is a 6'10" number 1 overall pick in the draft. He's very good. Sean, who we love, is a great guy, is just a guy. And so
yeah,
it's it felt like a funny characteristic to make sure, like, to him be like very intent on treating them exactly the same.
So there are several Philly sports process references in there.
Had to. Come on.
Now, Patrick, being a sports guy, did any of these get snuck in, or was Patrick aware of everything that you did?
I don't think he can get anything by me in that regard. I'm Patrick Waugh over there.
Yeah.
And plus it's like, he's more like, if he thinks of something like, the joke about like everyone being called the Joeys or whatever, is like such a funny Philly specific thing. And so it's like, he just can't wait to tell me that he came up with that. You know what I mean? Like, that sort of thing.
My brother-in-law is named Joey. His dad is Joe. And like, I feel like I met my wife's family and I was like, the fuck is the deal? Is everyone Joe in the family? I can't figure this out.
Big Joey town, which we like. I also should say there's I meant to say this for a while. There is a Kobe Bryant joke in the script. There are at least a couple references. The script was written before he tragically died, so it's not any comment about what kind of guy is, just a level of respect that Philadelphia has for him beating our ass in 01.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, the most unbelievable part of the script to me, I could buy a Mickey Morandini like bar or whatever.
Sure.
I could not buy, because you don't buy a dog park. So, like, I could not figure out how a dog park gets named after Glenn Robinson, who is an abject failure in Philadelphia.
Here's the thing, Spike. If you put enough esoteric sports references into a network comedy script, at some point they just decide that this one's fine. You reach a certain number, and they're like, they probably know what they're talking about, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. There were a few things that we got pushback for, where they were like, does it have to be this? And so we would tweak it from there. But I think because we just overwhelmed them, just a tonnage of very esoteric jokes, that, I mean, there's one thing that the biggest surprise that lasted in the script is Clyde played professional basketball in Estonia, and his whole story of a gym burning down and that being like a big pivotal emotional turning point in the script, sailed through it from story area to outline to script. No one ever gave like a single note about that, and I think Pat wrote that scene initially, and it was one of the things that was just like, are we gonna keep this? No one's gonna say anything. Like, you just get by sometimes. I think that was a special one.
At first, you're like, are they not addressing it because they don't care about this thing anymore? And then after a while, a few more rounds, they're like, oh, we like the Estonia stuff. And you're like, okay, do you want to, like, Mariano Duncan's wine bar? Do you want to pitch that instead of Morandini's? But I think you just beat them down and they give up. That's basically what happens.
And
then they don't pick up
library.
That's right. We could have been.
Yeah.
All right. I think it is for me, it's a very fun part of the history of not just the history of the pod. Like, this is all wrapped up in like Mike talking about it. I remember the Deadline article with the picture of Mike photoshopped in there with Ben Simmons and you, Patrick. So
They did a good job.
yeah.
Yeah.
Two questions for you guys as writing partners. The first one is, what is the worst thing that you, looking back on it, the worst thing that you guys have ever written together?
Oh, wow.
We've written a lot of things that didn't get to the end.
Right.
Like we've
You gave up
gone
on.
down the road of a few things and we're like, I don't think this is good.
Are we allowed to say the thing that we've been worst at?
With our,
It's an NBA thing?
with our pen name?
No, not that.
man.
Ghost thing.
Oh, yeah, sure.
We had, so you know that haunted hotel in Oklahoma City that like NBA players are terrified of?
Yeah.
It's like an old school hotel.
Yep.
We were like approached to like come up with a treatment of a potential like kind of horror comedy feature with that, with like NBA players and all that. And we were just like having a lot of fun with.
I claimed that he had like an in with Adam Silver of like, well, we can like, we know, and so we'll be able to make it work. And we're like, I don't know.
And we were trying to make it all about like All-Star Weekend, and they're like, well, what are the rules of the ghosts? And me and Mike are just like looking at each other like,
I gotta be honest, I don't care.
no, I haven't thought about that.
There's someone was like, you need to just go to a cabin for like 3 weeks and just write down the rules of what the ghosts world is. And you're like, I'm not gonna do that. And so they were like, we're gonna go with someone else. And I was like, that's probably the right idea. So that was tough. We didn't do a great job there.
Like, have you guys seen ghosts? We don't know if we'd buy that the ghost would hide there. Yeah.
No one has ever convinced me of ghosts like I work with former Eagle John Ritchie. And Ritchie stayed in a hotel once that was supposedly haunted. He thought it was a joke. And by the time he left the hotel, he was fucking petrified and totally believes in ghosts. And like, he definitely believes in it. Like, his belief in it sold. I'm not a ghost guy, but definitely sold me on it. And then the final question that I have for you guys, because I want everybody to get the script for the references, for the history. It's awesome. Is there something that you guys have always wanted to write? Is there like an idea? I don't even know if I can ask you this because you don't want to give it to somebody else. Is there like a general idea of something that you guys have wanted to write, whether it's an existing show or a non-existing show that you haven't gotten the chance to do?
Well, we got a bunch of things in the pipeline.
Yeah.
So that's hopefully some of them are happening.
Wait, is there a show that is around that you're like, oh, or has ended and you're like, man, I'd love to write an episode of that show?
What do you think, Pat?
I would, off the top of my head, I would literally say Pen 15 as a show that we would most want to write on. I don't know if you saw, I was on Hulu, set in like 2000, basically our era of growing up. I would say just pipe dream wise, and Mike has never enthusiastically reacted to this, so maybe this is my chance to put him on the spot. But I would love to do a reboot of Heavyweights as either a TV show or a feature
I
film.
don't think I know Heavyweights. Hold on, I'm gonna.
Oh man,
Is it a TV show?
no, it's the Ben Stiller movie Camp for Fat Kids.
Oh, I do remember that movie.
The fat kid camp gets sold, and they got to rescue the camp. Yeah.
Mike, you?
You have always wanted to do that. I would do it. It's your passion project, but I'm happy to be along.
As a former fat kid, yeah, it's near and dear to my heart, you know.
Yeah, for real.
Well, it happened. Here it is. All three of us right here on one podcast.
I will ask a question that he'll be happy
Oh,
about. Can you describe your game? Pat plays basketball with me,
Yeah.
so we play basketball all the time. We make a good team when we're on the same side. Can you describe your game for the fans listening at home, and if they're looking for someone that fills your role, maybe?
Absolutely. Okay. Only if I describe my game, I want Spike to describe Mike's game as Mike describes it, and then I can tell you if that's accurate or not. So my game is Mike has called me Eddie House before, both as a compliment and an insult, I feel like. But I would say that I'm definitely a shooter, sort of an off guard, can play the point in a pinch. I don't run into other people. I try to avoid contact at all costs, which is obviously the opposite of Mike, who comes off with like scars all over his arms and almost got pulverized to a rubber court last year during a game.
Well, that was the game that I took
shoot.
The muscle. That was the game I took the muscle relaxer for, and then was on the pod very high later that night.
Oh, I remember that. That's a legendary episode. Hi, Mike.
That was a tough one. The guy landed on me, and he was like 350 and mean, and like made my like hip like, obviously hurt the tip of my penis, which is a
legendary moment. Yeah,
a running bit. And definitely opened up a gash in my hip, so that was definitely a necessary thing. And Pat was there and thought I got swallowed up.
He squished you, and it makes sense that you took a muscle relaxer or an edible, because the way his body fit on top of yours so perfectly, like almost making you disappear into the ground, there was something else going on there. And so now I'm glad I had the full story.
Well, thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate it. It's nice to see you in real life. I've heard your name for several years now, and there you are, a real guy.
That's right.
Yes, you as well. I exist. I'm here, and once this pandemic is over, I promise I will listen to more than 4 Rickies in my lifetime.
You were at the Covington lottery party, though, right, Pat?
I was. So that counts. That's my third Ricky I've heard.
You don't have to. The pandemic. The podcast is on your phone. The pandemic doesn't have to end for you to listen to more of them.
He needs to hear less of me.
Well, I just mean I have so much Mike in my ear.
Right.
That's
Okay,
the
all right,
point.
fair. Okay, yeah. All right. We'll talk to you this weekend. Next week, we obviously released if you haven't seen it yet, the Tommy from Down the Shore and Tony T top 20 foods list is an all-timer.
Pat is a big Amos Lee fan.
Really?
Colors.
I tell him Colors is his best song, but the piano version is better than the guitar version. Piano version only on that first EP. But they'll be on next week to talk about Tony T, rather, not Amos. Tony T and Tommy from Down the Shore will be on next week.
I feel like Tommy from Down the Shore is really the star of those two. I feel like Tony has some catching up to do.
Let me tell you, Tommy from Down the Shore has started, he's now a character on the afternoon show on IP. He called in today. People fucking love Tommy from Down the Shore. So we have a bunch of guests coming up, so please listen. Thank you, Patrick, for coming on. Thank you, Mike, for sharing the script.
Buy the script. Charity.
Charity. Are you down with TTP?
Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
Lickface. He doesn't even know how the podcast ends.
If you don't fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you. If you don't fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me,
then I won't fuck with you.
But if you fuck with me,
I'm gonna fucking kill you!
Time for plan B.